The reason I've decided to introduce this session rather than previous ones is that I think it's at this point that you are approaching woodworking on a slightly deeper level. In the process of pairing, you're going through a process of reflection and analysis and consideration that you haven't had to do up until now. Up until now, you've been applying skills to the wood, and you've been sawing accurately, and you've been conscious of how accurate you've got to be. This is a bit different. You're actually getting feedback from your tool, from the material, and you're adjusting what you're doing with the tool to get it to be used most effectively against what's in front of you. So if you have a look at the video, you'll see how I run into real difficulties with the wood grain. And I hope that you'll be able to see that by thinking about what I'm doing and working out how the wood's reacting to the chisel edge, I'm able to get round those problems. I was faced with a situation where I couldn't get hold of any more material because of lockdown, and I was very conscious that I promised at the beginning of the video that this would be achieved through one pallet of wood, and I was running out of wood. So I couldn't afford to go back a stage. I had to make that joint correct. And if you look at the video, you'll see whether or not I succeed. So the first process I want to introduce you to is a process called paring, and in that you're using your chisel parallel to a surface to shave off very fine shavings, a bit like a plane actually, but you do it under control. So the technique goes like this: you hold your chisel, 3 fingers, 1 finger, thumb, with the end of the chisel handle in the palm of your hand, and you curl your 3 fingers around your handle. Your finger goes into this scallop bit here, your thumb goes on top. You pinch the end of the chisel between your thumb and first finger, and you then rest this finger against the end of your wood. That way all your fingers are behind your chisel edge, which makes it safe. And you just settle the chisel on the finest cut that you can achieve, and it will take off what should be a shaving, but this wood is splitting. It depends on the grain. Sometimes you get a nice curly shaving off it, other times it just splits along the grain. And you wiggle and push, wiggle and push, and you'd only take off about 3 millimeters at a time, and you're using what you've cut as a guide to keep the rest of your chisel in line with the surface. This is not behaving as it should do, if I'm honest. Wiggle and push, wiggle and push. About 3 millimeters at a time. Right, now this is quite open grain there. We've got a curl there, that's what we usually get. And you're looking for curls because it tells you that the wood is actually responding to the edge of the chisel. The fibres are being cut rather than separating and splitting. So on this side of the wood it was working well, on this side of the wood it was splitting. So we'll go down, we'll try it again. Rest about 4 millimeters of your chisel edge on your work and slide the chisel through the grip of your first finger and thumb, and you work along like that, and you can see that it's possible to take very small amounts of material away using that technique, and you're also controlling, for the most part anyway, how the wood is responding to that cutting edge. That's what we're after. Now obviously that would take forever to get down to the line that we're working to here. So what I'm going to do is to take off about 3 millimeters, something like that. Wiggle. I'm going to just knock it with the end of my palm there. Similar technique, I'm resting the chisel on the previous step and then knocking it with the palm of my hand, and not as much control because the wood's separating where it wants to rather than where I want it to some of the time. And another 3mm. When I've got to the end here, I'm just going to check that I'm running nice and parallel to that line. Not bad, it's a bit higher this end than that end, so I'm just going to do a bit of paring just to bring that so it's a bit more parallel. I'll just show you what that looks like so you can see. So I'm reasonably parallel to this line here. Do you remember I said it should be deep enough to run your fingernail along? But it's actually coming down at an angle here because of the way the grain is. You can actually see the grain, and maybe that's an explanation of why that's happening. So I've got to just work off this front edge. I don't want to go any further because I go below my line. And to do that, I'm going to come in this direction and use the chisel as if it were a plane. I can put 2 fingers on top of it. Notice none of my fingers are ahead of the cutting edge. And that's done something to improve that situation. I can do the same thing again. I don't want to go over the end because it'll break out, so I'm just going to maybe come back the other way. And one more just to make that parallel in that direction. And if it's not responding, I can slide the blade across like that. That's nice and parallel to my line in that direction, and the cut is parallel to the top surface there, so we're doing better. And I have another go at taking some smaller pieces off, and I can't get away with that, to be honest. I've got to keep on going in this direction. When I get near the end, I cut across like in that direction. So we're paring, but we're doing it across the grain rather than along the grain. Just going to check that we're keeping parallel to this line at the edge, which we are. That's good. We're not below the line on this side, which is a relief. So I just keep on going in that way, I think. Much more difficult than it would normally be because of the nature of the grain. Fingers well behind that cutting edge. Again, really important that chisel sharp. If this was a blunt chisel, you wouldn't have a hope in hell of doing anything accurate. I'll show you where we are so you can see. So we're parallel to that line, we're not down to it yet. We're not below this marking gauge line here, and we're not below that marking gauge line there. come back the other way. I'm getting close to the line, so I'm being quite careful. Bring that round. Oops, I don't like that crunchy. If I want to chop these bits off, what I do is use an assassin's dagger grip. I put the flat side of the chisel upwards, cut it, scissors, paper and stone, push it away from me, put my thumb there. Then I use this to push down on the work. Again, that's to prevent my fingers from getting anywhere near that cutting edge. You don't want to end up in A&E because of this. Right, nearly there. We're still parallel. We're about 0.5 millimetre from the line here, but less than that. 0.3 is about 0.5 here. Practically down to that line there. There's this bit here that I need to work on now. That's lifting, which I don't want it to do. Let's start here. So I'm putting the corner of my chisel on there, and I'm wiggling and pushing, keeping my fingers on top of the chisel, never a finger in front of the cutting edge. Still not quite down on this side. We're down to the line at the front here. I'm just going to take that off. We're just down to that line. I don't want to go any further than that. And we're a little bit high at the back, down at the front, so what I'll do is just take a wee bit off the back there. And lastly, that assassin's dagger grip just to clean that corner up. And there we are, much more difficult than I anticipated. But you can see that we have achieved what we wanted to. We're down to the line here, maybe a wee bit more here. Down to the line here. That'll give me an indication of how much more I need to do to clean up. That does need to be just worked on a little bit, that back edge. So there we are, it's done. Much more difficult than I thought it was going to be, and I hope it hasn't put you off. We'll have a go at another one in a minute and see if it's any better. But does it fit? That's the key. It does fit pretty well. No gaps along here. Very little there, and very little at the front. By the time that's cramped up, it should be okay. And it's even pretty close to 90 degrees, which is what we were after. Right, let's have a go at another one and see if it's any easier. Well, I got there, and thank you for your support. I'm sure you were rooting for me. What I want you to get out of the video is that through a process of reflection and analysis, I was able to get over the problem. And if you adopt a similar approach with your woodwork, I think you'll enjoy your woodwork on a higher level. I think you'll enjoy it more. And even better than that, I think you'll be able to get yourself out of corners that you find yourself in when you come across similar difficulties. Well, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, then please use the comments section below. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, there's a very easy way using the red button down there.